Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 2 of my MongoDB tutorial. In the first part I showed you basically how to set up MongoDB on Windows as well as on OS X, and in this part of the tutorial I'm going to get into a ton of examples in regards to how we can insert, update, delete, as well as query our database. If you didn't watch part 1, most definitely watch it, otherwise you won't have MongoDB properly set up, and I provide a link here on the video as well as in the description underneath the video, and all the code that is used in this video is available in a link in the description. So I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Okay, so here I have my terminal, or if you are on Windows, this would be your command line. And I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to restart my Mongo server. And there it is, all started up, and in another tab, don't close this one, in a brand new tab, I'm going to open up the Mongo shell. And here I'm going to use a brand new database. So to create it, I just have to type in use testdb, or whatever I want to call it. And there we are, I'm switched to it and ready to go. First thing I'm going to cover is how to insert information, and I did this a little bit in the previous tutorial, but might as well do it again. And we just come in here and go insert, and in between curly brackets we define our document we want to create, and this one's going to be name and Barry Bonds. This is the document I'm creating, or the name inside of it. And then I just have to close that off and then close off the insertion function. And just like that, we inserted a new document in our database. Now let's say I wanted to come in here and insert multiple documents at once. I would do that through setting them up as an array. And to do so, I'm just going to go testdb, insert, and then I'm going to put a squared off bracket showing that this is an array of documents, curly brackets, which shows that this is a document. The key would be name, and then the value assigned to it is going to be Ruth. Then I'm going to close off that bracket right there, and I'm going to throw in a new document. This one is going to start off once again with curly brackets, a key, which is going to be name, and then an additional value, which is going to be Hank Aaron. Then I close that off to close the document, and then I put a closing square bracket there to close off the array, and then I close off the insert function. And there we went in, and you can see the two were inserted and we were ready to go. We'd also be able to come in here and do a find on this to show that we have Barry Bonds as well as Babe Ruth and Hank Aaron all inserted into our database. But let's go back and let's do this find once again, because I want to focus in on the object ID. Now this is just a unique key that's going to be made up of 24 hexadecimal numbers, and 2 digits of this unique key are going to represent each byte. So the first 4 bytes, or 8 characters, are going to represent a timestamp for whenever this was created. And you can see Barry Bonds was created before the Babe Ruth as well as the Hank Aaron right here. The next 3 are going to represent, right there, a unique ID for the computer that generated this information. The next 2 bytes right here are going to represent a unique ID based on the process for the computer whenever this was all generated. And then the last 3 bytes are going to be incrementing numbers for each generated ID. And you can see as they are being generated, they are going to be incrementing. Okay, so that's the ID, and now you know exactly what it looks like and what all those numbers mean. Also, if I then wanted to come in and delete a document, also easily done. I just type in DB and the name of the database that I am using, and then remove. And then I just have to tell it how to match what I want to delete. So I'm saying here basically that I want to delete a document if the name has equivalent to Babe Ruth. And make sure you spell everything right, of course. And then I close off that document and close off the remove function, and you can see indeed that it has been removed. Just want to show you once again, if we use pretty here, we're going to be able to output all that information on our screen, or if we use find with pretty. And if you add more and more data types, it's going to get prettier and prettier. So add lots of different information to your documents to make it prettier. Now I can also come in here and update a document, and to do that, go in and use the update function. And to start off, I have to define how to match the document that I want to update. And I'm saying here that I want to match the document that has the name of Hank Aaron, put a comma there. And then after that, what I'm going to do is define what information I want to update. And I can update information that's already there, or I can insert additional information. I'm just going to have to put a $sign and set next. And then I'm going to put in name. If I want to update the name, I can do that. Let's say I wanted to have it be Hank Lewis Aaron. And also in the same exact place, without doing anything except putting a comma between it, I could also insert additional information. So let's say I wanted to chart the number of home runs that were associated with Hank Aaron. I could do so and put 755 inside of there. And then I just have to close off this document right here. And then I have to close off this part right here that comes right before the set. And then I have to close off the update function. And when I did that, you can see that updated. And if we come in here and do a find, you can now see that all that additional information was updated in the Hank Aaron document that we have. Now we're also going to be able to update multiple documents. What I want to do here first though is insert multiple documents. So just like we did before, I'm going to do an insertion with an array. So insert, I'm going to put a document inside of here. It's going to have name and it's going to be Babe Ruth, because I think we deleted Babe Ruth out of here. I'm going to put additional information being Hall of Fame, and let's say that I want to put inductee inside of here, and then I'm going to close that document off. And let's go in and throw in a bunch of other different people, and there you can see those, and hit enter, and you can see that 5 were inserted, and we can come in here and do a find, and you can see all that information and how they match up. But the original thing was to update multiple documents, not to show you how to insert multiple documents. So let's show you exactly how to do an update on multiple documents. Test database, and I'm going to say update, and the first thing I have to do is tell it how to match the information that I want to update. So I want to match for the key of Hall of Fame and the value of inductee, and there that is. Close that off, put a comma, and then I have to come in and exactly tell it what I want changed in all the documents that match with this. So once again, put set inside of here, and then I'm going to say Hall of Fame, and I'm going to say inducted in 1936. Then I have to close off the document that I have there, close off the other curly bracket that comes before set, and then if I want multiple values to be changed at once, I have to go multi, followed by true, and then close that off, and then close off the update function, and there we go. And you can see that I matched 5 and I modified 5. So all that information should be perfect. If I come in here, you can see that they all indeed did change. So pretty cool. Another thing we can do is we can increment values. So if we come in here and do a find, and we say that what we were looking to find is name and Hank Lewis Aaron, like that. And you can see there that came in here. Let's say that I wanted to increment the value of home runs for this. I can do that. So go to test database, update. Doesn't make much sense to do this with Hank Aaron since he's no longer playing baseball, but for other things that will come up, this will definitely be very useful. So I just have to, again, say what exactly I want to update. And then if I want to come in and increment, I just come in there like this, $, increment, and then what exactly I want to increment and by how much I want to increment it. So I can go home runs, and if I want to increment the value, I just put a 1 inside of there, and then I close off all the curly brackets and do that. And if we do a find on Hank Aaron, you can see that it went up to 756. Now if I then wanted to come in and decrement it, well, we could just come up here to the update part and just change this to -1 and hit enter. And if we do another find on Hank Lewis Aaron, you can see that it's back down to 755. So that's how to increment as well as decrement. We could also come in here and multiply values. So let's say that I wanted to come in here and figure out how many home runs Hank Aaron might have had if he would have played for 1 additional year. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. I would just change the increment over here to MUL for multiplication, and then I just have to define how much I want to multiply the value inside of home runs by. I'm going to say 1.04 since he played baseball for 28 years, I believe. And we can come in here and run that, matched and modified. And if we then do a find on it, you can see that 785.2 home runs comes up. And of course, using the multiplication function right there, we would also be able to handle division and so forth and so on. We can also add to an array or create one if it doesn't already exist. Let's come in here and create this, and we'll go update. And what we've said that we want to update here is a name that matches for Barry Bonds. And to push additional information onto this, I would just go with the $, and push, and then the additional information that I want to push onto it. So I could just have records, and then I could throw on a document that is going to contain single season home run record, home runs career, as well as walks. So we could go single season home runs, 73, home runs in career, and walks. And then I just have to close off those curly brackets and then close off the update function. And we matched and we modified. And we do a find on here for name, and let's just change this to Barry Bonds. And there you can see that we went in and threw a records array inside of here, and inside of that records array we have a bunch of documents that contain different records that Barry Bonds has set during his career as a baseball player. Just to show you something you may use a bunch of times but isn't terribly common. Let's say that we wanted to have a maximum number of items an array would be able to have. Well, we could come in here and we could do an update once again. we have to show what we want to update. So we want to update the document that has the name of Barry Bonds. And then once again, we can come in and we can do a push this information on here. And the information we want to push on here now is best home run years. And then to this, I'm going to use the each command, and then I'm going to put an array inside of here of the best years he had. So we're going to throw that on there. Now we have 6 inside of there, but let's say that we want to only allow 5 items in that array to go on there at one time. Now we can do a slice and put in 5 like that. Close off all the curly brackets, close off the update function, and one matched and one modified. Come in here and you can see that only 5 went on there instead of the 6 that I had listed. So that's one way to limit information that goes on there. We could also use another item called add to set, which is going to add a value only if it already doesn't exist. So this is going to be another update function. And once again, we're just going to match for name. And the name we're going to match for is Barry Bonds. Add to set. Once again, it's going to add it if it doesn't exist. However, if it does exist, it won't add it. And I have to say exactly what I want to add to. So best home run years, which is the item that I just placed inside of there. And in this situation, I'm going to say that I want to add 47 to it. There we go. One matched, one modified. And if we come in here to see the information on Barry Bonds, first off, the slice no longer is going to impede the ability to put additional information inside of there. And also you can see that since 47 didn't exist, it did indeed add it in. However, if it would have existed, it wouldn't have added it in. We're also going to be able to come in here and remove the last item in an array. See if we can do this a little bit easier. Here is the update. So I'm going to match for Barry Bonds. But instead of add to set, like I have here right now, I'm instead going to put in pop, and I'm going to let this be best home run years, and I want to pop off the last item inside of that array. So I'm going to put 1 inside of there. See, I matched it and I modified it, and if we do a find, you're going to see the 47 disappeared, the 47 that I just placed inside of there. So that's how to pop off the last item in the array inside of a document. We could also come in and remove the first item in an array. Once again, very, very similar way. We're going to use update once again. We're going to use pop here once again. The only thing we're going to change, we're going to put -1 inside of there. There we can see we matched and we modified, do a find, and you can see one of the additional or the first home run that we had inserted in there, which was 45, is now gone. And another thing we can do is actually remove items, specific items, and we're going to do it in much the same way. We're going to use our update once again, but instead of pop, we're going to use the pull command. So let's get rid of that and type in pull instead. Best home run years, that's what we want to match or where we want to pull information from. And in this situation, we want to pull the specific number of 73 out of there and remove it from the array. We matched, we did all that, and you can now see that 73 is gone. Alright, so there is a whole bunch of different ways of inserting, updating, and all kinds of other different things, removing information from documents using MongoDB. Now let's take a look at querying the database. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and drop some information out of this database. And I just type in drop like that. And now all that information's gone. And if I then come in and do a find on this, let's just get rid of all this stuff and then put find inside of there, you're going to see that the database is empty. Now I'm going to insert a ton of information so that we will be able to come in and do a whole bunch of different querying. So just paste in all this information. I'll go through here exactly what's going on. Okay, so we're doing just a basic insert. We're using an array of documents, and you can see name, Dale Cooper, street, addresses, cities, states, date of birth. This is how we would create a specific date inside of a document. You can see I put a date of birth inside of there. There's mail, there's GPA, there's status. You can see I have here student. You can also see we have an array right here, contact information, and all of that. So I'm going to be querying all of these different students, and right there I went and inserted 10 different students that we will be querying information from. So let's say I wanted to come in here and do a find, and I specifically wanted a student that's going to be from the state of Washington. And then let's say also that I wanted this person that I want to be searching for to be a male. No problem, and that is how easy that is. And then close that off, and then let's do a pretty on top of that. And there you can see all that information is printed out. So out of all the students I have inside of there, Dale Cooper came from Washington. He is a male, as well as Harry Truman came from Washington, and he's also a male. And that's all the additional information that I have on those 2 different students that I have in my class. Now let's say that I didn't want all that information, literally every piece of information on the student, but I only wanted the name and the date of birth for male students that come from the state of Washington. I can do that as well. Let's just come in here and do this right here, and we'll leave the pretty on there. And right after this little curly bracket right here, I want to go and put additional information inside of it. So that additional information is that I only want the name to be returned, and in that situation I'd put a colon and 1. If I would have put a colon and 0, it would specifically say I didn't want something. And date of birth, I also want that to be returned. Everything else can be exactly the same. Well, make sure you put a curly bracket in here, however, to close off that additional information. Enter, and now you can see that the object ID and the name and the date of birth also comes back. Like I said, if I would have wanted the object ID not to show up, I would put a colon and 0, but you're going to see more of that here in a moment. Oh, why don't I just show it to you right now? So let's come in here and do this, and just put in another comma, like that. And in this situation, underscore ID, colon, and 0. And if I do that, and I run this command, now it's just going to show me the name as well as the date of birth, and it's going to not show me the ID. Another thing that's kind of neat is we'll be able to do queries in which we can search for things that are less than, greater than, or equal to, or less than or equal to. So let's say that I wanted to find students in my class with a GPA in a range between 3.0 and 3.5. Test DB, do a find, GPA is what I'm specifically searching for, and then inside of curly brackets I define that I want to look for things that are greater than or equal to. If it was just greater than, it would just be GT, greater than or equal to 3.0, and I can define a whole bunch of different rules here, and I'm going to say less than or equal to, colon, 3.5, and then I can just close off those two curly brackets. And then let's say that I only want to get the name and GPA to be returned afterwards. I would just type in name, like that, colon, and a 1. And I also said that I wanted the GPA to be returned only, so I put a 1 there. And then I do not want the ID to be returned because it just gets in the way. Type in A0 there, close that off, close off the find function, and there you can see pops back all the students that have the matching conditions for that information. So pretty neat. We're also going to be able to come in and search for people that were born at different dates. And like I said, we can come in here and use JavaScript if we would like. So we could have something like the year 1969 is equal to, and create a new date inside of here, and find a date which is going to be January the 1st of 1969, and that is defined. And now what I'll be able to do is come in and do a search. So let's do test DB and a find, and I'm going to say that I want to search for date of birth and specifics for it, so greater than, and I can go and put that variable that I just created right there that's going to contain that information on the date that I'm searching for. So I'm looking for people that have a date of birth that's greater than 1969, and once again let's just say that I want to get the name returned, and then I also want the date of birth returned, and I do not want the ID returned. And there you can see Shelley Johnson pop back, and there is her date of birth, and Donna Hayward pop back, and there is her date of birth. I could also do searches in which I look for things that are not equal to, so we could do a test DB, another find, and specifically I'm looking for people that have a sex value that is not equal to male. So you can do a not equal to or an equal to. And let's, on top of that, let's say that we want to look for a status to make sure that this is a student that we're looking for. And then once again, let's just limit the information. Let's say that we want to get their name, but we do not want to get the student's ID. And there it comes back with Donna Hayward, Audrey Horn, and Lucy Moran. So pretty neat. Let's do some more. Just want to cover as many of these as humanly possible so that you can see all these different little tricks and functions and things that are built into MongoDB. This one, I'm going to say that I want to look for GPAs. I want to find GPAs that have an equivalence inside of an array of 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, or 3.7. Once again, what I'm going to be searching inside of is going to be GPA, and then I'm specifically looking for things that are contained inside of the array that I'm going to put inside of here. Let's go on the next line. So if they match up GPA wise to 3.4 or 3.7, I want that information to be popped back to me. Close off all those curly brackets, and let's keep this nice and simple, and let's just say that we want their name and no ID. Close that off, and you can see that Dale Cooper, Harry Truman, those are the students that have GPAs that are equal to one of those different values inside of our array. And we could also come in and find all GPAs except for 3.4 to 3.7 in much the same way. And what I want to say is not in, so we want to find all the matches that are not in this array, and let's just leave that be exactly the same right there. In that situation, you get all the other students that didn't match the first time. We could also do OR searches, so let's say we wanted to get results if one thing was equal or another thing was equal. So let's say we're specifically looking for troubled students. Well, we could come in and do a find, and the additional information we want to put here is OR. So we're looking for either or of these different things, and the different things we're going to be looking for. Let's go on a new line. I'm going to put this inside of an array, and I'm going to say that we want it returned if status for the student is dropout. That would be a situation in which the student's probably in some trouble. Close that off like this, and then put a comma, and then the next thing we're looking for. So maybe we'll be looking for GPAs that are less than 3.0. Close that array off, and then close off the curly bracket. And I just want to come in here and get the names so that I would be able to come in and contact them without any other additional information. Close that off, and you can see those are either our dropouts or our students that have a GPA that is below 3.0, which is less than. Okay. We could also use another command in which we could find GPAs that are not greater than a certain amount, again using the find command. So here we're saying GPA, that's what we're looking for, and then the specific thing we are looking for is a GPA that doesn't meet this condition, which would be greater than 3.0. Close off all those curly brackets, and there you can see all the students that don't have a GPA greater than 3.0. Another thing we can do is, let's say that we just want to contact 3 students per day. We could do a limit on this just by leaving this be exactly the same way that it is, and then putting limit at the end of it, and then throwing 3 inside of there. You can see it pop back the first 3. Also, in a similar vein, we could skip certain numbers. So let's say that we contacted the first 3 and we want to skip the first 3 this time. Just do skip. There's the next 3 students that we want to contact. And we could also come in and sort these different students in a very similar way. Let's go and do exactly the same thing that we had before. And then instead, we're just going to put sort, and then how we want to have these students sorted. We want them to have them sorted by name. Oops, and I forgot to put the little curly bracket right there. Let's just jump in here. It's a curly bracket like this. And there you can see that they're all sorted in alphabetical order based off of first name. And then let's keep on going. Let's talk about regular expressions. I'm not going to get too much into regular expressions. I have tutorials on them if you'd like to see. Let's say that I wanted to find every single student that's first name began with the letter D. Do that. Let's just test D. Do a find. And what I'm specifically going to be looking for is name. And then if I want to search for a name, I'm going to put /. This is a regular expression. I'm going to put the caret, which is going to match for the beginning of the line. Then going to look for a letter D. That's the reason why that's inside of there. And then I'm going to put a dot and a star. Whenever you see that, a dot and a star, what that means is we want to match any number of characters, which is the dot part. And this star matches many different times. And then at the end of this, I'm going to put a $, which is going to be the end of the line, and then close off the regular expression itself. Whoop, and it gave me a little error because I forgot the little squiggle mark there again, or the little curly bracket. There that is right there. And we can continue onwards here, in which we're going to say that we want our name and not the ID. And there you can see the 2 students that have the name that begins with the capital letter D. We can do all sorts of regular expressions, of course. We could also come in and check tests. So let's say that we wanted to find students that got a 0 on one of their tests, and we wanted to come up here and correct that and look into how we could deal with that student in our tests array that we have assigned to this. And I have all this available, of course, a link in the description. You could look at the array while we're doing these queries. Maybe that might help make a little bit more sense. And there you can see Shelley Johnson and James Hurley inside of the tests array come back with a 0. And let's do a quick find. You can come in here and see tests. See there's an array called tests, and there's all the different test scores that we had inside of there for the different students. That's what I was searching inside of. Another thing we could do is maybe do a search in which a student received a 10 out of 10 on a test and a 0 on a test, meaning that something's sort of up with this student, and then we should go and take a closer look at how we might be able to help them. Do a find, and we could do tests, which is what we're going to be searching for right here. Again, make sure you put that curly bracket inside of there. And what we're going to be searching for in this situation is we're going to use all. And what we're saying here is we are looking for a situation in which the tests array contains a 0 and a 10. and you can see that Shelly Johnson pops back. So that's a situation. We had a student that got a 10 on one of her tests and then got a 0. Something's up with Shelly, and we should definitely check her out to make sure that everything's okay with her. We could also have other situations in which we want to go and find students that got a 10 on their first test, and we would just use indexes in that situation. So let's come in here and let's go and get this guy. And if we specifically want to look at the very first test, we would put 0. That's a 0 indexed array, and we'll look for a value of 10 inside of there. And you can see that Dale Cooper, Shelly Johnson, Donna Hayward all got a 10 on their very first test. So that's how we could search individual different arrays. Let's say that we just had an additional test and we want to push that new test score onto a student array. We can do that as well, of course. TestDB. In that situation, we're going to do an update, and we will first off come in and we'll say what we want to update. So we're looking for a document that's going to have a name that's going to match with Dale Cooper, and then specifically what we want to update is the tests array, and we want to push additional information onto an array. We use the push command, this and push, and the array that we want to push information onto is called tests. And what we want to push onto it is a test score of 9. Close off the curly brackets, and you can see that it went and matched and it modified. Don't need to go and look at that. You can look at it on your own. Then what we can do is come in and check for students that have taken 4 tests using the size function. And this is only going to come back with 1 because that's Dale Cooper, because he's the only one that we input in there at the time. So I do a test, and we're going to do size, and what we're looking for is a size of 4 for the tests array. And you can see Dale Cooper pops back because he's the only student that took the test, or we entered the information in regards to his test score anyway. And we could also come in and get a specific number of tests out of our test array as well. Dale Cooper. And specifically what we're looking for is our tests array, and then we can say that we want to get the first 2 tests out of it. So we just use a slice command, which you saw before, and go in there and play around with all these different things, see what types of interesting information you can get out of it. And there's all the information on Dale Cooper, and you can see down here if we come down to the test part that it just shows the first 2 tests that Dale Cooper took. Let's come in here and do a little bit more here just to cover the last couple queries. If you want to get the last 2 tests that Dale Cooper took, you do -2, and you're going to see there's 8 and there's the 9. Likewise, we'd be able to come in here and get the second and third tests that he took just by going inside of here and putting 2 square brackets. And then let's say that we wanted to skip the first one. So we want the number 1 index, which is going to be the second item. And then we want 2 total items from that point. And there you can see 9 and 8 pop back. Another thing that's kind of neat is, let's do a find right here. You can see down inside of here where we have a document inside of a document. So there's contact information, and inside of it we have the email address. How do we go in there and get the information inside of that document? Just to find, and let's say that we specifically wanted to find the student with the name Lucy Moran and get her email address to contact her for some reason. We just say what we want to match. Then inside of here we can just put additional information. So we'll say we want name, that's going to show up, and then we want contact info, and if we want the email inside of there, we just put a dot right there, and there that is, and 1, and there that is, and you can see it pops back the email address for Lucy Moran. And then the final thing I'm going to cover here, let's search for a match using the dot operator. So we'll do TestDB, find, again we just put contact info, which is the name, and phone is specifically what we're going to be looking for. And let's say that we're looking for somebody with the phone number 792.223.1115, and we want to get that student's name as well as or we don't want their ID. Oh, nothing come back because I put a dot up here. Let's go up here and fix that. Dot, and Tommy Hill pops back. So there you go, guys. That is a ton of information in regards to how to insert, delete, update, and query a whole bunch of different documents using MongoDB. And please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.